Hi, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining today. We are super excited to have you here with us. You guys are joining us from all over the United States. So we're gonna pop up a poll and we'd love to know what region you're from. So if you'd fill that out, that'd be really awesome. Hey, so I'm Rachel McCool from GoDaddy and I'm gonna be your host today. I live in San Francisco and today I'm really lucky to have sunshine because sometimes we have a lot of fog. I manage GoDaddy's online community and some other community and programs, including some of our virtual meetups where we offer customers an opportunity to hear from other small businesses. So we know this is a super challenging time for most of you. And you may know that GoDaddy launched an initiative called Open We Stand with a coalition of over 70 brands, including, of course, GoDaddy, Street, who we're hosting this webinar with, American Express, Salesforce, Microsoft, LinkedIn, PayPal, GoFundMe, Slack, and many more companies coming together to provide small businesses access to resources, content, special offers, benefits, pledges of support to you, and a community for people like yourselves to connect with one another and provide helpful tips and inspiration to each other. So if you haven't done so already, please go to openwestand.org and check it out. There is so much there for you, and believe me, like so many great articles and other things. So today, I'm really excited to be here with the team from Street, who is one of our great partners of Open We Stand. And the Street team are experts in advising small businesses on capital, customers, and services. So they're here today to talk to you about strategies to reignite your business, which probably for many of you right now, like, are really looking for some new ideas and things you could be doing. I'm sure you're going to find it really helpful as you navigate this new and evolving world for your business. So let's get started. I want to introduce two small business experts who are representing Street today. Hailing from Buffalo, New York, which, by the way, I was there about 1.5 years ago, great town. Matt Revere will be leading our webinar today, and Matt has over 10 years of experience in banking and small business development. He has advised and mentors small businesses throughout the state of New York to obtain financing and grow their businesses. And supporting Matt is today out of New York City, which is one of my favorite cities in the world, is one of Street's finance account managers, Elsie Aga. And he will be monitoring the Q&A forum for questions you have. He'll either be answering your questions directly or making sure that Matt gets the questions and will address them. So on that note, we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible in the time we have. So feel free to add questions throughout the presentation. And we just like to know what you guys are thinking about, what kinds of questions you have, and how we can help. Okay, so Matt, take it from here.
Great, thanks so much for that introduction, Rachel. And I want to talk first about some resources well, first I'd like to share where everyone's coming from. So we got people from all around the US right now. We have a few from the Northeast, some from the Southeast, some from the Midwest, the Southwest, and Pacific Northwest. And I know that we're really well spent, and I know that there is a lot of different stages that we are in opening due to COVID. So we're going to talk a little bit about nationally what you can do in specific regions to really think about how COVID has impacted your business and how to transition. I want to talk a little bit about company resources to this. There are key slides from this workshop that we will be sending out afterwards. So because of that, don't feel like you have to write down all of the information on every slide, especially ones when we talk about additional resources. And then as part of this, there is a continuity and restore plan toolkit that you can download for this. That download link will stay live for about a week. And just ensure that you're able to download that because it's a really great resource. And later in the presentation, we're going to kind of go a little bit more in depth on how to use that. as well. And so now that e-learning is the new normal, we just want to talk about a few tools and etiquettes. The first, that all attendees right now are in view only mode. That's just to make the best use of time. The second is that if you have a question, please type into the Q&A. Elsie is here, the moderator, who can answer in real time. And then we'll also leave some time at the end for Q&A with both myself and the team. We will be using polls throughout the presentation, which we just did, and there are going to be a few. I love polls. They seem very encouraging, very engaging. And again, there's a link to the workbook and exercise of this. If you have not done so already, please feel free to click and download the file. Great, so let's get to learning objectives. But before we get into that, I want to tell a story. About a year ago, I was driving down to my brother's house and a deer hit me. I didn't hit the deer. The deer hit me. It ran right into the back of my car, and I did nothing wrong. But yet here I am sidelined dealing with insurance companies, and my entire day was gone. And when we think back to March of this year, that's exactly what COVID-19 did to your small business. It wasn't expected. It wasn't your fault. Yet here we are. We're sitting on the sidelines. We're trying to figure out what to do, and in this emergency situation. So that's what we're looking to do here in this learning objective, is to really gain a better understanding of the type of assistance available to your business, to understand the most critical elements to consider when recovering from a business disruption, identify immediate next steps you can take to recover from this business disruption, and finally, to gain a better understanding of business continuity and resiliency planning. And a few things we will be covering today is an overview of the available resources, both for financial assistance and technical assistance planning, access to assessing the impact of your business, both key considerations and then immediate next steps that you can take. And then finally, building that roadmap, really building that roadmap to restore your business, evaluating options of the new environment and building the plan. So I'm going to stop there for a poll question, and we're going to ask a poll about where are you in the reopening process? Great. So it looks like about 40% of you have already reopened fully. That's great to hear. However, as I'm sure you know, COVID has impacted your business significantly in ways to deal with that. Some of you have already reopened partially. Some of you are preparing to reopen soon. Some are preparing to reopen, but maybe not in the immediate future. And then a small margin, I have not yet prepared to reopen. The good thing about this training is that there's going to be something in here for whatever stage of business that you're in right now, and to really assess and address all of the needs and issues you have. So let's get into it. Where can you turn for help? Well, first, let's talk a story about what does resiliency look like. This is a story about Stefan Cooker, who opened What's Poppin' Popcorn, MWBE business located here in Buffalo, New York. He started this business in January of this year because he always loved popcorn and loved his community, wanted to give back to the community, as well as to share his love for popcorn. So he started a brick and mortar store, and everything was going well until COVID-19 happened. And once that happened, he put all of his money into the storefront, and now nothing is happening. So he had a few different options. Either you could sit it out and wait and hope that everything came back to normal, or he could try to pivot his business to assess the new need. So what Stefan did was he assessed and reassessed his business to launch a social media campaign to generate excitement about the popcorn, to really bolster that. Because of that, he saw a very sharp increase of sales, completing almost 1,300 online orders in 1 month. And already he's shipped to 19 states, and his goal is to ship to all 50. So if you're in one of these states, I totally recommend What's Poppin' Popcorn. It's a great company. And this is one of those scenarios where when you run into a roadblock as a business, you can really kind of take that and then think about what can we do to be resilient? What ways can we shift our business that to meet the new demand or to meet the new changes into the environment? And ways you can help that is we can talk about some of the available resources that are available to you here as a small business owner. So the first is the SBA Resource Partners. This will be your go-to place. They are called SBDC centers, SBDC. They are located throughout the entire United States. They are usually in places where there's universities. They will be your go-to person, as everything I'm talking about and we'll talk about in the next slides, they know. And they can be kind of your focal point where you can go to them and say, hey, I need help, and they will be able to help you with that. Another technical assistance partner would be SCORE. SCORE is a all these services obviously are free. SCORE is a one-on-one mentoring service where they match you up with someone who has done this industry, who has been successful at this industry. It really gives you kind of that one-on-one mentoring that you would be looking for your business. There's also a Stanford Small Resource Hub that you can search local partners that can help and with any technical assistance that you are looking for. So these are ones nationally. There may be more locally in your specific area, but again, going to that SBDC center will be a very great focal point in how you can access technical assistance help. Now, financial assistance. We all know about the PPP and the EIDL loan. Now, good news is that I learned today that the EIDL loan is coming back. In fact, they launched the version 2.0 today, which is meant to be much more streamlined process than when the first time was. So if you missed out on those funds or you're having issues with those funds, please go to that website and I would definitely explore it, as it's much more accessible now. The PPP loan we all know about. There is funding still existing about that. However, I know that some people may not have been able to get PPP loan. And so I want to spend the next time about different alternative financing situations that you can take a look at. So the first is Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFIs. These are nonprofit, mission-based small business lenders. Their goal is to get you the financing that your business needs now. There are national ones, and there are also some at the local level that can help you. They have less strict underwriting than traditional banks. Another one is credit unions. A lot of times people think credit unions and banks are the same. Credit unions are a little bit different, is that they really serve a community base, and they most know about the small business ecosystem. They also are nonprofits as well. In terms of those are debt financing options. In terms of crowdfunding options, there's Kiva US. That's a crowdfunding platform for you. There's also GoFundMe, Small Business Relief Fund. We all know how GoFundMe works. And in this current time, they are offering a $500 matching co-grant when you raise at least $500 yourself. Equity financing, again, there are many options. Just one of them may be Republic.co. They're an equity investment platform for yourselves. There's also a Startup Hub Fund grant when we're looking at grants, where you can search different grants and different grants maybe in the areas. Due to COVID-19, there is an influx of grants to small businesses at this time. There's also one through Fundera Small Business Grants and Hello Alice as well for all COVID-19 emergency grants. So the main takeaway is everything that I talked about here, your local SBDC center will know about it, and they can help you manage this. We also will send these slides out afterwards for you to manage. Okay, great. So now we all know that COVID-19 impacted your business. We all see it, we all felt it, but we really need to assess the damage that it did to understand how to solve the issue. So first, we must assess the impact of your business. And we're going to do this in 4 different ways: through financials, organization and communications, operations and systems, and legal and regulatory. So we're going to ask a few key questions you may want to ask yourself, and then immediate next steps you can take. So the first we're going to do is financials. So there's 5 considerations that we can take a look at. First is cancellations or delays. Are there any projects, events, clients That risk right now or postponing for next 3 to 6 months, or even looking back, were there any clients that canceled on you? And thinking about how you might prevent that from happening, or what are some ways you can talk to them and renegotiate. The consideration too is new opportunities. What new or different client opportunities might present itself within the next 3 to 6 months? Again, going back to the what's poppin' popcorn. Is there a way you can pivot and translate your business? Consideration 3 is really thinking about project revenue. Thinking about projecting our revenue for the next half of the year. What does that look like? What does it look over the next 3 months? So we can build what our next would be projected costs. Are we going to have costs? Are costs going to either increase or decrease to COVID? And what's that going to look like over 3 to 6 months? And ultimately, that's going to lead to our projected cash flow. As we all know, cash flow is king when you're running a small business. So we really want to know, as good as we possibly can, what is our cash flow and how that's going to look in the next 3 to 6 months as a result to COVID. So here are some potential next steps. One, to prevent cancellations, is to introduce new payment options, 0% financing, payment extensions, whatever it may be. There's a lot out there and a lot of different organizations looking to help small businesses, especially in this category. The second one would be to use instead of what can you afford strategy for risk or defaulted clients. So instead of having it all or nothing, maybe there's a way that you can work out a negotiation as they can maybe pay what they can right now, then later down the road, they will be able to pay the rest once they're fully operational. The other is to offer gift cards or vouchers instead of cash refunds. This is something the airlines have embraced very well. And thinking about if that's something people will accept, usually the time everyone is going through this, they understand. And most of the time, that's something they understand. Second one is to think about our cash flow and how we can increase it now. And some of the creative ways I've seen is sell digital cards. Everyone wants to support their small businesses, especially in their neighborhoods. So one of those is to sell digital gift cards where you can get that capital you need right now, as well as the person purchasing this feels like they're helping their community. There's a lot of people out there right now thinking of how they can help their small business system in their cities. Second is to expand your market. This is a great question. Don't think about what you sell, but really think about how you're selling it and who you're selling it to. This is one of those situations where maybe we can take a negative and turn it into positive. I really think about, instead of me selling widgets, I might think about how I'm selling them and what other methods can I be taking to sell these effectively. And the third one is partner with other organizations. So maybe other organizations in your boat, they're looking to get to collaborate in different ways. Now, also ways that you can kind of negotiate is with vendors of creditors is to seek 30, 60, 90-day extensions. A lot of places they did this by default, just knowing that this is something important. Consolidate, refinance debt. This is where you can have open and honest conversations with people who you have debt with. And there are many, many programs out there right now. I would say just pick up the telephone and make those calls and make those asks. And more often than not, you will get what you're looking for, as well as inquiring about flexible payment plans as well. So I wanted to stop here real quick and just to ask this poll. What steps have you already taken to prevent cancellations? And what are some new steps you're looking to take? The results are great. So one of the leading answers was expand your market by rethinking what you sell and how you sell, as well as partnering with other organizations to enhance or expand products or services. I love seeing that people have taken that proactive stance to really think about, building a small business community. And again, turning a positive to negative is that when we're partnering with other small business or other organizations, we are building that small business community within our communities. And some new ones are those two. Those seem like great suggestions that people are already looking at. Some are seeking payment extensions, as well as introducing new payment options for customers. Great. So now I'm going to move into an example here. So this is an example of a client who's based in Minnesota, who was able to really pivot during COVID-19. So the creative developed a pneumatic product offering. So before COVID, she had trademarked the term inclusive marketing, was working with businesses to build a more inclusive brand identity. But post-COVID, she noticed that there was really a solution to ensure inclusive outreach to the public. She would need that this would be more business to consumer. And she would do this by helping mid-sized companies reach to the federal and state and create a ripple outreach product to apply to inclusive branding. And because of this, she was looking to help create new product offerings and to increase her staffing. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about organization and communications and assessing how this has impacted your business. So key questions to ask yourself during this time. The first and foremost is employees, if you have employees. Key considerations to ask. Did you have a reduction in staff? Have you had conversations with all of your staff? And are your staff members able to return if and when you need them back? We'll talk about best practices in the next slide for this. Next, obviously, is your customer and your customer base. Have you lost any key customers? Have you attempted to communicate with them, and are they responsive? And do you know if they're meeting their needs elsewhere? Are they just not purchasing, or are they going to a competitor? Some vendor and supplier questions. Have you lost any of your key vendors or suppliers? What does that supply chain look like? Have you attempted to communicate with them? Are they responding to you? And are any of your contracts in hold, or have you discussed these options? Then finally, with our creditors and investors, are your investors' creditors losing confidence or expressing concerns? Or have you had any concerns with any of your credit or investors? So this entire section, the overall arcing message is communication. Be in communication with your employees, consumers, vendors, suppliers, or creditors. That is absolutely key in a lot of different ways. So with employees, if you have employees, one of the potential next steps I recommend is to establish a regular update schedule, either weekly or bi-weekly, and be open and honest where you stand with updating. So those businesses that are fully open right now, I'm sure that you experience this as you move through the different phases or the different colors, as how quickly it happened and how quickly you had to rehire. And establishing that weekly or bi-weekly schedule allows your employees to be ready. And it also allows one-on-one communication with your employees to see how they're doing. And if you can answer any questions about unemployment or whatever that may be. And if you did have to lay off or furlough an employee, check on them, seeing how they're feeling, and see if they are interested in coming back, or maybe they want to change careers, whatever that may be. But knowing that if you are looking, you have that staff in place to reopen if it needs to be tomorrow. Customers, again, this is where you can ask yourself how their needs may have shifted during COVID-19. Share how your customers can support you. Again, a lot of customers want to support you, even in times of when you're closed. That's the idea of the gift cards as well. And make sure to send them relevant updates. Don't spam. There can be a little bit too much communication sometimes, but considering putting very big announcements on your website, and then maybe smaller communication to your email list. Vendors and suppliers, this is something you have to ask yourself is, what do I need in place to fully open. If you're a restaurant, you may want to be talking to your vendors or suppliers earlier on and seeing what they have and see what they can do for you, and keep that lines of communication with them very, very open. Finally, with investors and creditors, schedule conversations with financial institutions to let them know where you are, what your projected revenues may be, and be very, very transparent. Everyone knows and understands what's happening right now. That's some of the challenges you're planning to and how you're looking to overcome them. And so I just wanted to stop right here and to ask a poll question. What are communication channels that you've already leveraged to connect with customers during COVID-19? And also, are there any new communication channels that you can leverage? These are great. You know, I love seeing that one of the top answers is personalized emails and phone calls. And I think that that goes a really far way with your customers, knowing that there is that human touch. People shop local, people shop small for that personalized touch, and knowing that for a lot of you, that was your first go-to thing is really great to see in terms of customer attention. Website e-commerce platforms, those are great ways as well. And then looking at the future, what are some new ones? An email campaign. I always think email campaigns are great. And then also consider in that email campaign, I would say have a call to action. Have them do something, whether it's to purchase a gift card or it's to come back or whatever that may be. If you're doing an email campaign, make sure that there's some sort of call of action to it. Great. So now here's an example of InnoSec. So InnoSec is an additive manufacturing startup. And one of the things before COVID-19 is that they're doing business-to-business printing production and types of prototypes and numerous materials. However, when COVID-19 hit, they really reached out to the key customers to understand what their needs were and how supply chains may be impacted. And they were helping their customers understand what those supply chains were. And because of that, they were able to land much larger deals in dealing with supply chain consulting. So when we go back to that human touch you have is going to be so important with all of your clients and consumers. All right, so now let's talk about operations and systems. So operations and systems, some key considerations is location, both physical and online. Are you currently able to maintain operations either at a physical or online location? For those of you that are fully reopened, the question may be, do we want to keep both our physical location and our online equipment? This is what equipment is risk of damage if left unattended. Workforce, do you have a single point of failure in your employee pool? This basically means, do you have one employee that knows how to do a single task? And if they leave, are they going to take that knowledge with them? And what are some ways to do that? And also, were you forced to move to remote work setup? Were people trained to work remotely? And then process and supply chain. How has your supply chain been impacted? And do you need to find alternative vendors and suppliers? So looking at potential next steps for this is location. Again, this is going to be pretty key for you in thinking about the future. Is that if you needed help to work remote online, we have a work remote online resource here, but are you going to keep your physical location? Are you going to keep your online store, or is it going to be a little bit of both? And what's that going to look like? And then do you have the manpower? to manage both of those. And what does that look like? So these are things that you do want to think, especially looking at the future, what that looks like. The equipment, make sure you just conduct weekly equipment checks. Again, going back to the airlines, airplanes were not made to be sitting on the ground, so they are flying empty airplanes just to ensure that. If you're a bakery, making sure that you go in and test the ovens, anyone who has a retail space, ensuring that there's no water damage, anything like that, just to ensure that that's all there for you. Workforce, I'm always a big proponent of cross-training your employees. Ensuring that you cross-train your employees means that if an employee of yours decides not to come back, you don't lose that knowledge. And it also breeds a little bit of happiness or a little bit of employee retention when someone thinks that they may be getting a little bit more education on the job, which really will help you in the long run. If you need help setting up a remote work, check out the digital tools that we have in the tool guide for you. And when it comes to process supply chain, ask your suppliers for recommendations. This will go for both retail and food and beverage. Anyone who has a large supplier, they know you're not their only client. And so they will usually help you know what you need to stock up, especially for if you're just opening or you're partially opening, what that looks like. But the earlier you can do that, the better. And this is a time to really think about what are some things you can automate. So I do want to stop it here for another poll question. What have you already done to improve your update or streamline your operations during this time? And then again, what are some new things you may think about? Great. So the first two things I see that people have already implemented is revised policy and procedures and streamlined or automated frequent repetitive tasks. That's great to see. It's great to see that during this time, you're really working on your business and thinking about things that down the road can really help you save on your bottom dollar and automating and policy and procedures. So you work, instead of selling the widgets, you're working on your business. So that's great to see. And then some new things you can see is the cross-train employees. Again, I always recommend that as well as streamline or automate repetitive tasks. Great. All right, so a few examples of this. There's two actually here. One is a Taqueria Rancheros here in Buffalo, New York. And so pre-COVID, they were working on a second location. And they're slowly going about it, and they didn't have the manpower to really run the first location as well as to build out the second location. So it's break in time, we're really able to pivot on launching the second location and working on those internal processes and building what the hierarchy of the corporation will look like to ensure that both locations can run smoothly. As well as Queen City. Queen City is an early childhood center and uses time to make a number of internal processes, including policies and procedures and long-term scheduling for employees. So really you want to think about what process you can streamline, what systems you can upgrade, and what repairs you can make. All right, then finally we're going to talk a little bit in this section about legal and regulatory and assessing that impact on your business. So the first is insurance. Have you incurred any losses that may be covered by insurance? Contracts, have you had any cancellations of your contract? And then regulatory compliance. Were there any permits that are going to lapse? Are there any regulatory payments or fines that you have incurred? And if you're still open, and most of you already are open, have you taken reasonable consideration to protect the staff of your customers? We'll focus a little bit on that one as well. So insurance, again, back to communication. I don't know all of the insurance policies that you have, but there may be some that have some sort of coverage due to COVID-19. So I would say with your insurance agent, set up a meeting with them to understand key variables impacting the potential recovery of your business. And is anything here covered under your insurance cost? The second with contracts is that you contact your clients to see if they're willing to reschedule. And the second is to review current terms of the payment to see if there's any options of recouping partial payments or deposits. Again, being in communication is key. Now, regulatory compliance. This one is going to be very, very important for those businesses that are open. It is different wherever you are in the nation, but if you are open, make sure that you've taken reasonable consideration, protect your staff and customers, and absolutely make sure monitoring your local government's websites for updates and reopening and what requirements you have to have on presence to make sure that you are legally compliant with this. Also, permits. Make sure you're looking at your permits. Are any of them going to lapse soon? If they are, be in communication now with that agency, whether it's city or state, to ensure that they don't lapse, because it's always easier to renew a permit than it is to reapply for a permit. Great, so this will be a last poll question. I just wanted to stop here and think about what potential next steps you can take. Oh, never mind. There won't be a poll here, but we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, great. So now that we did that, we really want to, so now that we assess the damage and really understand what the bottom dollar was that really hurt our business, where we're hurting, where we're doing well, we need to start building that roadmap, what that roadmap looks like to restoring our business. So you have the Restore Toolkit with you. We're going to go through that a little bit. Again, this is a great resource, a great tool to really help you understand and build that roadmap to recovery. So we're going to first talk about strategic considerations and planning. So as you plan your recovery, it's important to remember that not all urgent tasks are important and not all important tasks are urgent. What does that mean? Essentially what that means is you as a small business owner do not have enough time to do everything, as you're aware. You may have everything coming at you at once, especially right now, especially with everything that's happening. And so what I ask you is to think about prioritization of tasks and what that looks like. So there are the red box in the upper left, do as soon as possible. It may feel like everything has to be in that box, but does it have to be? And the reason why we're doing this is to prioritize that time. So if something is absolutely urgent and absolutely important, do it right away. Do it absolutely, do it right away. And something of that may be something of getting the staff ready tomorrow to reopen. Something that may be not urgent but important, schedule time to execute. That may be looking over your lease, looking over the permits, checking your permits when they expire, and making sure that happens. Then there are things that are not important and urgent. Those are things that if you have trusted staff, you can delegate them to. And then not urgent or not important, those are things you may delay. Now, tasks will move from box to box. So for instance, if something is not urgent important and you have a lot of tasks that have moved away from urgent import and can move into that red box. But this is to manage our time efficiently to ensure that we get the most tasks done in a timely manner. Great. So some strategic considerations and planning. Financials. If you're closed, can you afford to reopen your business? Or if you're open right now and you are opening, what does your cash flow look like? What is your cash flow going to look like for the next 3 to 6 months? If you're a restaurant, is there ways that you may have a limited menu to ensure that you have everything on staff and to ensure that you may be using a smaller margin food that may be selling more, doing a limited menu? Are there things there financially? Have you evaluated funding options? Have you analyzed which funding source makes the best for your situation? There are many, many, many funding sources out there right now. Some are good, some not so good. Again, leveraging your local SBDC center, especially for funding, will help your business in the long run. You don't want to make a funding mistake right now that's going to hurt your business for a year and a half. So really looking at the funding options that make the most sense for your business. Will the post-disaster market change your customers' needs? This is something to consider. Do your customers want something else or something different? Also something to consider financially is we don't know what the future is going to bring, unfortunately. We don't know what that looks like. And so financially, just being in a position and prepared if we do have to shut down again. I'm hoping that doesn't happen ever, but we want to make sure we're prepared. And when it doesn't prepare, we then have that influx of cash that we can do investments into our business with. So organization communication. Number one is staffing needs. Take a look at the jobs that existed before. Make sure the needs are the same. Are there any changes you want to make? Were there tasks being duplicative? Are there new roles because of COVID that have to be implemented? The second, to think about rehiring. Will you rehire key employees, or will you need to hire new employees? Again, going back to that communication. The worst thing to do is to pick up the phone to call employees saying, hey, we're ready to go tomorrow, and the employee says, sorry, I can't make it. I just had a change of heart. Because hiring, again, like a permit, is much harder than retaining staff. And do you have a reopening market plan? What's your key messaging outreach strategy? This is where you can start thinking about, okay, we're opening up. What marketing do we want to do? Is that an email blitz? Are we going to put our website? Are we going to call the local newspaper and the local media to really get them going? Because in this time of phases opening up, especially as businesses are partially open, how are you going to let your clientele know that you're fully open and you're ready to go? And what does that look like? And then operations and systems. If you shut down, should you reopen existing location or move online only? Again, that conversation you can have. Do we want to just be online? Does that make sense? Or are we going back to the full brick and mortar location? That makes more sense. Or is there a hybrid? And if there is, what does that look like? And do we have enough manpower for that? And what is the structure of that going to be? Before you're ordering inventory, check past sales data. What was selling, what is not selling. This is a great time, again, turning a positive into a negative is kind of trimming the fat on your business. What were we doing? What were we taking in, hoping it would sell, but never really sold? And this may be a time to really double down on what was working and what we can do to push those sales. And the third is are you set up to work remotely if necessary? Again, we don't know what the future is going to bring, but we need to be prepared. And that is, if it does happen again, are you in a situation where you can operate remotely? Finally, legal and regulatory. Does your insurance cover any lost inventory? Call your agent, push your agent, see what they can do for you. Ensuring that all licenses and permits are up to date, easier to renew than to reapply. And have you reviewed your contracts to see if you need to add any provisions to protect yourself from the future? Those are things to think about. Again, planning for the future. What does that look like? So today, we do hope that you gained a better understanding of the type of assistance available to you, understand the most critical elements to consider when recovering, identify immediate next steps you can take to recover your business disruption, and then finally, gained a better understanding of business continuity and resiliency planning. I'm now going to open up for any Q&A and love to take any questions.
Hey, Matt. Prior to actually going in with folks answering questions, a couple of questions that I believe are useful for everyone to understand. And number one, from your personal experience in the industry and working with business owners, out of the 4 buckets we introduced today, which one would you say holds more weight? And is there a particular bucket businesses should tackle first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always believe in financial. So, well, the overall arcing story is communication with everyone. And if you have employees, that's very, very important. Now, looking at your business itself is financials. Looking and trying to project the financials of your business, especially around cash flow. Cash flow is going to be so important to your business, as those businesses that are either fully open or partially reopened can tell you. You need to project what that looks like. So thinking about financials is very, very important. And if you need financial helps to get you to that spot, that's where the SBDC Center can help you with all those different funding opportunities.
Perfect. The follow-up question, and speaking of funding, as we know, the EIDL program opened a new round of funding as of yesterday. Can you please give kind of a high-level overview of the stipulations of this program for individuals who maybe are not aware of the program and kind of how it works? If you can give some tips, if possible, to all the folks.
Yeah, so the new program, essentially what happened with the old program is people felt it was too monotonous and tedious, and it was very, very slow. And so with the new program, from what I'm learning, is that they're streamlining the process. So it is a flat interest rate of 3.75. It is more of a traditional SBA loan underwriting, so they may ask you for more documentation. However, anything under, I believe, $150,000, they're not going to require collateral. Furthermore, anything under, I believe the threshold is $50,000, it's a much, much more streamlined process for it. For this, again, we can chat one-on-one. There is going to be office hours after this to talk about your specific need or specific questions, but your local SBDC Center can help you with this, and they're plugged right into the SBA, so they know every caveat of the EIDL loan.
Thank you. And kind of a last question from me. Speaking on this realm of funding, is there any funds or any grants that you can suggest? We have businesses throughout the nation here. If individuals have been approved for funds through the CARES Act, is there any other funding beyond this that you could suggest that businesses should look at? Maybe you talked a bit about the CDFIs. Do you know of any other resources available?
Yeah, so there's a lot of resources out there, but I will say, before you ask yourself what's out there, ask yourself what the purpose is. So again, you don't want to overborrow, and you don't want to over leverage yourself to put yourself in a tough financial position that may hurt you later down the road. So thinking about why I want to borrow and what this is going to help me accomplish in the future, I think are key questions. However, going back to alternative funding resources is, yeah, if you received a EIDL loan and it didn't cover what you're looking for, CDFIs, I would first say start with your local bank. They're a great resource. They're very well regulated, and they'll give you the best rates in town. Now, let's say if your credit is damaged or there may be other issues, I would then move to talking to both CDFIs, those community development financial institutions, or credit unions, people who are, their credit box is a little bit more lax than that of more of a traditional bank. From there, you can then definitely explore some others, such as crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. Crowdfunding, that's where if you have a very big client base who's really looking to help your business monetarily and want to make donations, that may be a good option for you as well. But again, we do have office hours. We can chat about which one makes the best sense for your situation, as well as leveraging the local SBDC. All right, so again, if you have more questions, there will be a office hours on the GoDaddy community page on June 23rd. If you have any more questions, there's a link to the follow-up survey. We would love to get your feedback on this. We will be sending out the key slides and recording, and additional FAQs, anything you may have will be there as well. I really, really want to thank you for attending this today. Small businesses are something I truly care about. It's something that how we define our neighborhoods. And I just want to thank you for keep going during this time.
Yeah, Matt, thanks from GoDaddy for all of you that attended, asked great questions. Thanks to the Next Street team, really, really good content. I've been involved in other types of content as well from GoDaddy and other customers, and this was really amazingly helpful content. So thanks so much to the team. Matt just mentioned office hours, and by the way, we're going to send out this this presentation. You guys will get it in the code, but there is next week Tuesday on June 23rd, and I'm going to put it in Pacific Standard Time because I live out in Pacific Standard Time. But it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. on the GoDaddy, in the GoDaddy community. There's going to be a link there for you guys to link over, ask us questions. We're going to be there for an hour next week. And I'm sure, you probably have very specific questions about your own business. And so we'd love to see what you have, what you'd like to know. So join us there. And then we will be doing another webinar next month. So be looking for that information to come, and hopefully you can join us at that point as well. And then as you can see, we'd love for you to complete our brief survey. You can scan the code if you like. We'll also be sending that out to everybody. Always when you do webinars and provide information to people, we always like to see if it's helpful. So please fill that out and let us know. And I think that is the wrap for us today.
Thanks, sir.
And again, thanks to Matt and Elsie. You guys rock.
Wow, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for attending. Anything you need, let us know. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.